Thinking back to the power he had shown, he noted that a man with such intelligence and strength could rule an entire city if he wanted to. Even Go Haiju, who was completely out of control, could help them along with Choi Yul. Can we accomplish this mission? Wondered the sergeant. However, his thoughts were interrupted by a loud explosion that occurred right next to the truck. The shockwave was so strong that he was immediately thrown aside like a feather. Kwon Jae-yong got out of the wrecked truck and looked around, not paying attention to the soldier who was asking if he was all right. But shifting his gaze to where the explosion had been, he didn't need any more explanation. At the sight of the explosion, there was some guy standing on top of the body of the defeated guardian angel. In one hand was a sword, while in the other he held the halo and wings that belonged to the former. As expected, this guy was none other than Choi Yul. The sword he had was called Divine Divide, which belonged to the legendary class. In its description, there was a legend that it was a fragment, the sword that once divided earth and heaven and also created the world. But in its current form, it had lost most of its power. Even so, it could turn the amputated parts of monsters into objects. Approaching Choi Yul, Sergeant Kwon Jae-yong replied in surprise that the latter had managed to defeat the Pillar Protector single-handedly, also adding that he didn't expect to see him here. But the latter only smilingly nodded his head in response. The next moment he jumped into the air and disappeared from the sergeant's sight. Who, noting that the boy did not speak, concluded that he probably had no bad intentions. The soldier behind him suddenly and fearfully turned to Kwon Jae-yong and started to talk about the Pillar Protector, pointing at him with his shaking hand. But he was interrupted by the confident voice of the sergeant, who, thinking that the soldier was simply surprised by the pillar's death, replied that he should have simply reported to the command that it had been destroyed. But as it turned out, the soldier's excitement was not in vain, and the protector was indeed alive. In the system window that appeared the next moment was a message that the condition for the special trait was met, which was to remove the wings and halo from the fallen angel. The result of unlocking the special trait, however, was a spoilage that would turn the fallen angel into another creature without destiny. Just as the message said, ugly body parts began to grow on the defender's already disfigured head. After a while, a completely different creature that looked like a dinosaur stood in front of the stunned Sergeant Kwon Jae-yong and the ordinary soldier. It was a spoil beast with a difficulty level of 2. It was a beast that had lost faith and fallen to sin. Because of which, the god no longer looked after him. Looking at the monster in front of him, he came to the conclusion that the warrior's life was indeed a shit. But luckily reinforcements had already arrived in the form of a group of 5 men, each armed with a machine gun. Kwon Jae-yong looked around and assessed his capabilities and realized that since there were only 3 monsters in this mission, they were probably as strong as the entire raid. As he began to fire at the pillar defender, he wondered if Choi Yul had left this monster on them. The reinforcements that arrived followed suit and also fired at the monster. One of them contacted the headquarters and requested for support, giving their current location. The pillar defender, who was sitting on the building at the time, pushed off the wall. At breakneck speed, lunged at the group of soldiers, attempting to damage them with his huge paw. Luckily, it managed to dodge and escape unharmed. However, surviving was not the same as not losing morale. In the next moment, frightened by the monster's attack, they panicked and began to flee, leaving Sergeant Kwon Jae-yong alone with the monster. The same having a helmet that removed all the negative emotions that could prevent him from thinking straight and fighting, looked at his comrades who were running away calling for help from their mother. Gritting his teeth in anger, he began to retreat, leading the monster behind him, while continuing to shoot at it, attracting its attention. Leading the monster away from his frightened comrades, he told himself that he had to hold out until reinforcements arrived. The monster, which was much faster than a normal human, opened its terrifying maw and was already flying at him. Sensing the danger, Kwon Jae-yong turned around. However, it did not help in any way. In the next second, the pillar's protector stepped on him with his huge paw. A pool of blood immediately formed underneath. Choi Yul threw the book he couldn't get rid of into the air. Then he closed it with a smile on his face and said, "Great, I got one." At the same time, a bright green light began to shine out from under the paw of the monster that was supposed to swat the sergeant, leaving the monster bewildered. In the next second, his paw was forcefully thrown back by the bright green light, which formed into something like a barrier. A hand holding a green flag rose from where the sergeant's corpse should have been. A message appeared in the notification window, announcing that the conditions for Heldin's hidden helmet skill had been met. The person leaning on the flag and standing on one knee was none other than Kwon Jae-young, who was still alive despite being completely covered in blood. Holding the assault rifle in one hand and the flag in the other, he was muttering something to himself. The first condition for activating the hidden skill was to be on the verge of death from a dark attack or a spoil strike. The second condition was that the owner of the helmet had to be the leader of a group of more than 5 people. The resulting skill was called the Spirit of Heldin. When the skill was activated, the wearer became possessed by the evil spirit of Heldin, who was an inquisitor of heretics. In the next moment, his image appeared behind Kwon Jae-young. He was glowing with a green light and also emitted an aura. And of course, he resembled Susanoo. The duration of the skill was 10 minutes, during which time all equipment and skills were imbued with divine power. The defense against darkness and spoilage was also increased. Also when activated, the wielder entered the fanatic mode, in which he received an increase in the characteristics of attack, defense and recovery, as well as becoming immune to any emotion. He would also lose his mind and attack all monsters of darkness and corruption. When he saw that the person he was supposed to kill had survived and was also radiating great power, the monster was surprised. While Kwon Jae-young continued to mutter fanatical nonsense. But the benefits of this special skill didn't end there, as the next moment the system reported that the fanatic skill had been activated for all members of the team. As a result, in front of the members of his squad who a moment ago were running in panic, a patterned sign also appeared on their foreheads and their eyes turned green. Fiercely shouting some fanatical phrases, they already rushed towards the monster without a drop of fear. Choi Yul, who was watching from above, got goosebumps as it looked even more terrifying than he had imagined.
And when his battalion commander was talking to him and offered him a car, Ying then told his superior that this looked like it was too great for a mere sergeant. The battalion commander, who was named Kim Song, then smiled. He praised the guts that this soldier had because he was quite frank in front of him. But this small talk just made things more awkward. Ying didn't respond. Commander Song then continued discussing their situation. He revealed that they still have almost no intel about the current status of things, and at times like this, their force would need to act as a calm observer. This role was a perfect fit with Ying. Aside from the effect of the Heldin's helmet that makes him composed in all situations, this guy also has the guts to protect the people. Back to the current battle, Ying's squad has bombarded the beast with their bullets. They were not holding anything down. This soldier was still thinking of the things that he had talked about with the commander. That was until he ran out of bullets. But since they were in fanatic mode, Ying commanded everyone to charge towards the Pillar Guardian. The weapons that these soldiers received from the dice were then also blessed with the buff of the Iron Club Goddess. This one had his divinity gunstock ready to be swung. As for the others, they received some kind of skill like this divinity bayonet skill. They even had this divinity flag that was used to pin down the corruption beast. And after a few more moments, these 5 soldiers have succeeded in subjugating their opponent. Each one of them roared and dedicated this feat towards the Iron Club Goddess. An announcement was then shown to all the people in the city, including Commander Song. He found out that the leader of the party that defeated the corruption beast was Kwon Ying. He then thought to himself that he really had a great eye on finding potential towards people. As for our overpowered MC, he had this huge smile as he thought that he was really right. All he needed to do was to drain most of the Guardian's stamina and then make Ying's squad finish the rest. This guy also noted that even if the Guardians were to transform into a new form, their stamina would stay the same. He also figured that when monsters transform, the contribution of the previous damage dealer would also be reset, just like what he did when he fought this Guardian when it was still in its fateless angel form. This information proved to be useful because this made Ying's squad as the biggest contributor for the defeat of the beast. They would also get more rewards now. Our MC then turned his attention and asked someone what he thought about this plan that he just conducted. The one that he was talking to was Jack, the goblin soremaster. This one had this confused look because this was the first time a human was really having a conversation with him. Yul then told Jack that it makes him a little frustrated to find out that this guardian was not able to communicate, but he was still glad that someone could listen to his stories. Our MC continued talking to Jack until they came to the point where he asked the goblin if it wanted to make a bet. Choi Yul just made a bold statement that if he wins against all the guardians, he would even break the Demon King's seal. This statement bore an intense pressure. Someone couldn't just claim something he couldn't do. But for this goblin, he felt like this was possible. Meanwhile, a flaming spear was busy being swung in another place on the map. The slashes it executed landed perfectly on the anti-human machine with a level 1 difficulty, causing significant damage. This flame dragon goddess just went through a bunch of these machines and defeated them in an instant. Haiju went there after she received a rescue call, but her stamina was already running out. She also wondered if there's really no end to this battle. More and more machines kept on appearing. On top of that, these ones kept on receiving some kind of upgrades as time passed by. Haiju was already thinking of ending this fight before things got more dangerous, but the problem was the speed of production of this guardian pillar. She then commanded everyone that was near her to retreat for now. But these beaches were not listening. They thought that she just wanted to keep all the rewards to herself. People continued to rush towards the machines. Most of them were already desperate because they needed some points to buy potions to heal their loved ones. Among these said people were these two who were hiding behind the tower. They both positioned themselves in a perfect spot and readied their crossbows. These ones have a set effect that increases their damage according to the people who were wielding the same gear. But before they could release their attacks, the head of the Mad Brain Guardian turned around towards their direction. This caught them off guard and froze on their position. A powerful ray of beam was then shot towards these ones. Luckily, Haiju came at the right time and was able to deflect the attack using her legendary spear. But since the power of the beam was just too much, it was evident that Haiju was already struggling. A huge explosion was then seen along the area after a few seconds. Haiju was also revealed to be badly injured. The clothes this one was wearing were even burned from the attack. She then maintained her composure and was about to tell these ones to start running. But as she turned her head, she found out that they were already on their way. They were even crying for help. This lightened up the situation and it made Haiju laugh for a bit. And while this was all happening, Mad Brains has already fixed its gaze on Haiju. This Pillar Guardian had already started analyzing Haiju. This includes her status, user level, attack patterns, and other analysis. As soon as it was done, Mad Brains moved once again. And this time, a new machine was being created. This right here is intended to counter her. Haiju noticed this and thought that she needed to stop the machine at all costs. But Mad Brains knew what she was about to do, so it alerted all the other machines that had been deployed. And after a few seconds, they all rushed towards Haiju's direction. This tactic then made this lady occupied by deflecting all the attacks that were being thrown at her. But this didn't make her panic. She even thought that this was a perfect opportunity. She then released more of her power again and made her eyes and hair turn red. That short interaction was utilized by Haiju as all the machines had gathered near her. A powerful flame attack was casted once again. Haiju managed to defeat every single one of the machines in one go. And while she was at it, she asked everyone who were still near the place to start evacuating as soon as possible. After that, she threw her spear towards the skies. All the people near her knew that a powerful attack was about to happen as her spear was now heading towards the monster, so they ran for their lives. The flames from the spear grew more powerful for each second it was traveling. It was sent to land on Mad Brains, and in a blink of an eye, a blinding explosion was seen along the area. This was just too powerful. The crowd that was running away from the tower were even sent flying from the shockwave it created. As for Haiju, she saw something interesting that made her let out an ironic laugh. In front of her was a powerful shield that has deflected her all-out attack. The tower and the pillar guardian didn't even have a scratch on them. A machine that was also flying inside the shield could also be seen. This new and upgraded type of machine was called AGM. It stands for Anti-Go Haiju Machine. AGM was resistant to fire and it was equipped with Dragon Slayer weapons. It will also be focused on detecting and chasing Haiju. This lady's eyes widened as she realized something. The machine that she just saw inside the shield has already made its way beside her.